Wandavision is an American limited television series featuring the characters Wanda Maximoff and Vision with costumes by Oscar-nominated costume designer Mayes Rubeo. Loki is an American television series featuring the character of the same name with costumes by Christine Wada. Both shows are produced by Marvel Studios and could rival any big-budget movie, and I love them both. But who did it better? Let's find out, but before we do, there are spoilers for all 9 episodes of WandaVision and 6 episodes of Loki. To determine who did it better, the costumes in both shows will be judged on the following criteria: the design, or how well the designer interpreted the text and told the story of the characters through costume; the execution of the costumes, taking them from the design and into items that actors wear; and wow factor, that little bit of awesome that takes a good design and makes it great. Let's begin with the design, the first step in the process before the costumes are made. This stage often involves early concept designs, mood boards, and costume renderings with fabric swatches. First up is WandaVision. WandaVision's costume designer, Mayes Rubeo, is a veteran in the film industry, and you'll likely know her work in John Carter, Avatar, Thor Ragnarok, and Jojo Rabbit. Having worked with the team at Marvel before, Rubeo had a close, collaborative relationship with the producers, writers, and the Marvel production team in bringing her designs to the small screen. She said in a Golden Derby interview that she put just as much energy into this show as any blockbuster on the big screen. Her design process began by spending 2 weeks reading the scripts and connecting the costumes through, and because Marvel has this trademark style, Rubeo said that her designs had to be Marvelized. The early episodes of WandaVision are based upon American sitcoms such as I Love Lucy, The Dick Van Dyke Show, The Brady Bunch, and The Partridge Family, shows that Rubeo said she grew up watching as a girl in Mexico, and they helped her learn English when she moved to the United States. Rubeo sketched a lot of designs before meeting with the producers and the director, and adjusted the design until they hit a look that they all agreed upon. In an interview with Women in Marvel, she said she was replicating the looks of the series rather than the decades themselves. Rubeo worked closely with the director of photography for the black and white episodes, as well as the production designer, so that the costumes didn't disappear in the blend of the same color. She used a mono setting on her iPhone to see what the fabrics would look like in black and white. This is akin to costume designer extraordinaire Edith Head, who had her eyeglasses custom fit with specialty lenses designed to see color in black and white. She told Variety that the color palette in the show comes from the pain Wanda is feeling inside, the grieving. The color is built upon as they travel through the decades. She said, when we got to the twins, there was much more color than you'd seen in the show because it was in the middle of a very weird Halloween. Rubeo also worked closely with the cast, including Elizabeth Olsen, who played Wanda Maximoff, and Paul Bettany, who played Vision. Paul Bettany's inspiration for his 1970s looks, for instance, was Robert Redford in the 1975 political thriller 3 Days of the Condor, and then Rubeo agreed. To bring Loki to the small screen was no small feat for Christine Wada, a lesser-known costume designer whose past work includes contemporary movies like Bridesmaids and Pixels. There are a lot of moving parts and a multiple of variants crammed into 6 episodes that it's enough to make your head spin. Wada began with the script, and she said, you start to do the deep dive of the reference and research and what story you want to tell and how you want it to be portrayed. She tells Screen Rant that she did loads of research and plowed through the world building. In a similar process that Mayes Rubeo had while working with Marvel Studios, Wada met with Marvel executives and presented her costume illustrations and had a costume that went back and forth until they came to the design. She said that because there is so much history at Marvel, that it really frees you up to just take that material and try to make it 3-dimensional as best you can, and also function within all that, which is really, it's a gift creatively. According to the Loki production brief, Wada worked closely with Loki director Kate Herron and other filmmakers to create looks that Herron described as an outer reflection of the inner story. Wada said that they started this season by stripping away Loki's armor, beginning with his literal armor to reflect his journey. The costumes and production design has this mid-century look, with the filmmakers stating that they took cues from AMC's Mad Men and the 1982 movie Blade Runner with its sci-fi 1940s film noir themes. If we look at the silhouette of the late 1950s and early 60s, the pants are slim and the jacket lapels and neckties are narrow. Director Kate Herron saw Mobius as a kind of hard-boiled detective like Harrison Ford's Deckard. Wada, meanwhile, said that there were also elements inspired by Terry Gilliam's Brazil. According to Gizmo, Wilson's suit and mustachioed look is meant to evoke beloved Marvel Comics editor Mark Gruenwald, the publisher's top continuity expert, and who, in the comics, every TVA employee was originally a clone of. With its complex high-concept design spanning over multiple decades and drawing from a multitude of pop cultural references, the winner for design is Wandavision. Next, let's look at the execution of the design, the stage that takes us from the sketch pad to the screen. This process often happens after the approval of the design, the designer working with cutters, builders, the cast, and other technicians to bring about their ultimate vision. In Wandavision, approximately 80% of the costumes are custom-made because, as Rubio said, if they were to fit right, they'd have to be built for the person if you want them to look amazing. Multiple costumes were needed for many of the principal characters when there was wirework and an additional 2 more for the stunt double. For additional peace of mind, Rubio said she always makes at least 2 of each outfit just in case coffee gets spilt on one. For Wanda's costumes, Rubio presented multiple options to Elizabeth Olsen, and she said they would have discussions about the color and style. She added that actors Catherine Hahn, who plays Agnes Agatha Harkness, and Teyonah Parris, who portrays Monica Rambeau Geraldine, were also particular about the details of their costumes, something that Rubio welcomed. She said they wanted to try on everything. They wanted to find all the possibilities to get it right. It was a proper preparation for this project. The rest of the costumes were sourced from specialty costume houses or collections. And while you would think that the bespoke costumes, it was actually the off-the-rack contemporary costumes that were the biggest expense. Rubio used vintage fabrics in many of the costumes from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s because, as she said, when you're making something with real fabric, it is going to fall in the same way you imagine or stay in the same way that you imagine. For Wanda's 1970s striped dress, for instance, her vintage fabric buyer found 30 meters of the fabric from a cave in downtown LA or something, she said. She said that as soon as she saw the fabric, she had the design in her head. And because of the limited fabric required, she had to just make it work. Wanda's wedding dress was inspired by Audrey Hepburn's dress in Funny Face and was supposed to look like a bonbon, like a beautiful object of delicacy, according to Rubio. Sparing no small detail, Wanda's dress was made from the very same vintage fabric as Audrey Hepburn's from a factory in France. Rubio designed Agatha's brooch after the Three Graces cameo, but instead it's meant to be the 3 witches that attempt to burn Agatha at the stake. A theme throughout the season, Rubio incorporated the medallion into all of Agnes's costumes except the 1980s aerobic outfit because she couldn't make it work with that one costume. There's also a lot of humor in the costumes as well, and 2 that stand out are Wanda and Vision's Halloween costumes. Rubio said this was producer Kevin Feige's idea of adapting the character comic book looks, and it was sort of the kind of thing you might see at Comic-Con. Now, my 2 personal favorite costumes are Wanda's magician assistant costume, which is a red sequin bodysuit with matching red gloves, and Darcy's escape artist outfit. Actor Kate Denning said in a Marvel interview that Rubio used the teal color in all of her costumes to match her eyes, but that little addition of red is a chef's kiss. In Loki, there are so many incredible details in the costumes, but you would have to look closely to see them. The TVA emblem is well represented in all the costumes, from the decals on the tactical uniforms worn by the Minutemen to the tie pins and the belt buckles. No detail is forgotten. The color palette is in warm retro tones like chocolate brown, tan, burnt orange, and ochre. And like the god of mischief himself, the use of the variant stenciled on the back of Loki's jacket was a lovely surprise. The construction of the TVA uniforms worn by Mobius and Loki, while appearing mid-century, are cut in such a contemporary way you might not see it unless you zoom in. I can't recall having seen this cut before in any show. Loki and Mobius's shirts, for instance, are fashioned after an Oxford button-down, but mashed together with a Japanese origami style where the collar flows into the shirt seams, creating this yoke feature. Yada told Collider that we needed a little something that wasn't just of this modern era, that took us into the weird world of the TVA. She said, origami is a very good way of describing a lot of things about the show, twisting up of the things to make them all of a sudden magical. According to Wada, Loki himself required approximately 14 shirts. She told Screen Rant that it's a miracle that they made it through the entire season with just 15 pairs of pants, which were made from 1950s sharkskin fabric, and there was zero stretch. Wada said that she struggled with the color, not sure if brown was a good choice, although she said that the sharkskin fabric reflects a two-tone brown-green. While not typically sci-fi, leads you to believe that the TVA is a sort of benign organization, and green, the color that represents Loki. Wada said of the Loki variant Sylvie, "For her costume specifically, I didn't want it to reveal the gender right off the bat, and that was important throughout the whole series. So the armor, battlesuit, and the drop crotch pants become pivotal in the whole idea of keeping it genderless. Her thought process is that the character would be unrelatable if she was running around in high heels." Sylvie is not the only one that is gender neutral. So is Ravonna Renslayer, dressed in this 1940s fitted zoot suit style jacket with ankle-length pants and worn with sensible, chunky shoes. Her jacket has a feminine touch with a little flare in her coat. My favorite costume, and the one that surprised me the most, was Loki's gorgeous indigo-colored Lamentis uniform. Throughout the season, Wada said that Loki's costumes are meant to show his vulnerability. She said the turtleneck added a bit of softness to that moment, and it worked for the atmosphere he was in. He Who Remains, played by actor Jonathan Majors, is dressed in the Kang the Conqueror's colors of green and purple. Aspects of his costume come from various sources. His pants are Mongolian-inspired, his sandals reflect the reign of Genghis Khan, and his cloak is meant to look Victorian, although I thought it looked like a notary or judge's robe. You have to look very closely, but there's this beautiful cording detail on the collar. And there's also a celestial emblem on his top, looking like the timescape in the season finale. And finally, bonus points to Christine Wada for building zippers into Sophia DiMartino's costume so that she could nurse her newborn. This is a tough one because both shows did an amazing job of bringing the costumes to life, but because of all the complexities and the beautiful details in the costume, the winner for execution goes to Loki. The final consideration is the wow factor. A good costume design doesn't necessarily need to have a wow factor to make it great. There are lots of incredible designs that don't have those one or two costumes that just cause your jaw to drop. But since the shows are currently tied, it's the wow factor that will determine the winner. Wandavision has many awesome costumes, but there are a few that really stand out, and certainly when I saw them, I was blown away. The first one is the Scarlet Witch. The costume was designed by Andy Park, Director of Visual Development at Marvel Studios. Rubeo had the costume made at Ironhead Studios, an effects firm specializing in costume and creature design. Rubeo had worked previously with Ironhead Studio founder Jose Fernandez on Thor Ragnarok. Of her relationship with Ironhead, Rubeo said, I can only say that my collaboration experience with Jose Fernandez has been nothing but great. He really has a great sense of aesthetics and knows how to build a beautiful costume and deliver on time and on budget. And the Scarlet Witch's boots were made by the Toronto-based Jitterbug Boy Original Footwear Company. The second one that blew me away is Agatha Harkness's finale costume. Agatha's costume is made from 10 layers of fabric that came from Rubio's personal stash of fabric, which she said pleated beautifully and moved kind of like Medusa. She said that each layer had its mission and is evocative of the hex. The green color in the layers is meant to represent a dark, mysterious forest, while purple is a signature of Agatha's mystic power. Loki had some lovely surprises as well. Firstly, we had all of the Loki variants, who in the void looked like they belonged on the island of misfit toys. Wada said that she referenced the post-apocalyptic Mad Max franchise when creating the Loki variants. To come to their looks, Wada said, the conversation was all about digging through the history for the times a Loki might have been caught and making sure their outfits would indicate a specific moment in time when they are caught and then adding a scavenged element to it. For instance, somebody using a set of bicycle handlebars inspired the horns, so it was a culmination of a lot of vision and history. Then came the part where we bounded the looks in the classic Loki color palette of black, green, and gold. Of the Loki variants, the most surprising was Richard E. Grant as classic Loki, dressed head to toe in spandex. Wada said the fabric is vintage fabric, but then we went in and did some textile art to it to not have it look so sad and pathetic, but to have it look just like he had been sitting in there forever, which I hope came across. She added that there were 7 yards of fabric in the cape alone. Ironwood Studios made 3 crowns for Wada, including classic Loki's horns. Richard E. Grant, meanwhile, said he was disappointed that he didn't get to have muscles, but I thought it was perfection. Again, both shows had amazing Wow Factor costumes, but that fabulous Agatha Harkness costume tipped the scales for us. Therefore, the winner for Wow Factor is Wandavision, which means that Wandavision did it better. Let us know in the comment section below who you think did it better. We're looking forward to seeing Mayes Rubeo's work in Thor: Love and Thunder, where she will be reunited with Taika Waititi, and we'd like to congratulate her on her recent Emmy nomination for her work on WandaVision. It's well-deserved. And with Loki coming back for a second season, we're excited to see what Christine Wada has in store. We'll be back with another Who Did It Better, so if you enjoy this content, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. Thank you for spending time with me. I'll see you in the next video.